The Cleveland Browns have finally made a change at quarterback, but they went with Dillon Gabriel instead of Shedeur Sanders, and that's a mistake. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso, with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert, the Data Queen, Michelle Majuk. On today's episode, we are going to take a look at what might be the best matchup of the weekend between the 3-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the 3-1 Seattle Seahawks, with two reclamation projects at quarterback. But who's the next big reclamation project? We'll make our prediction there. Plus, we got to talk about a big Thursday night football game tonight between the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. But we got to start with the biggest news in the NFL, and that's the Cleveland Browns, who benched Joe Flacco and will be going to rookie Dillon Gabriel. Before we dive into all of that, do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen. Reminder that you can follow our show and hear new episodes ad-free daily on Amazon Music. Go check that out. And thank you for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. It's Crossover Thursday on the Locked On Podcast Network, and Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So the Browns have finally done it. Can't believe it took this long. Never really made sense to have a guy like Joe Flacco in there anyway when the team isn't very good. I think we can both kind of agree on that. But now the illusion is up that this team's going to win games. Flacco is out. He could barely move around, really showing his age. But they went with Dillon Gabriel. Michelle, we've talked about this quite a bit. I think this should have been Shedeur Sanders' opportunity. He was a better quarterback in college. He was a better prospect by most people. And the fact that he's not the starter, okay, but he's not even getting a chance to be a backup. He's still the emergency quarterback. I'm sorry, but there's just something going on in Cleveland that I don't buy.
I don't know why they drafted him, right?
What are we doing?
What are you doing? There's no team that needs hope more at the quarterback position than the Cleveland Browns, right? Or the Saints at this point. But what are you doing? I'm not even upset they're going with Dillon Gabriel first, right? You drafted him earlier. Fine. You liked him. If you liked him as a prospect and you believe in him and you saw him and you think he's good enough to start, who's to say he can't be good? I don't think he's going to be any good, but I've been wrong plenty of times before. So I'm fine with that. But having Sanders still as a quarterback 3, you're just being petty and it makes no sense. And you just burned a 5th round pick then. Or I don't know, if you do plan to start him later, this is just a bad taste, I'm sure, overall in his mouth. So this whole thing is silly, but I'm happy they're finally moving on from Joe Flacco. That had to happen. Yeah,
that had to happen. They needed to make the move some way, one or another. But I just continue to go back to like you're saying, why do you draft 2 quarterbacks? And then I have all these Browns fans telling me, hey, we got 2 first-round picks next year so we can go up and get our quarterback. Well, then why did you burn 2 draft picks in the draft on 2 rookie quarterbacks with the intention to not play either of them to start the season? It just makes zero sense to me. But to try to get some inside information here on what might be going on, we throw it to my guy Spencer German from Locked On Browns.
Well, we thought it was happening. It's officially happened. Dillon Gabriel will be starting for the Cleveland Browns in London this week. I can't say I'm totally surprised, as I talked about on the podcast. I thought they'd wait another week because this week's just so weird. You're going to London. You're changing the schedule. Cam Robinson just got traded for you. You got to sort of get him up to speed. There's a lot kind of happening all at once to then put a rookie under center and make it his first start. But I can't say I'm surprised in overall that they're making the change because the offense has been at rock bottom. And if Dillon Gabriel offers you some sign of hope that you can even be a little bit better than rock bottom, I understand why they're making the change. The mobility part of this is probably a big factor. Joe Flacco just cannot move. And I think adding Gabriel into the mix allows the Browns offense to do some of those things that Stefanski did back in the day with Baker Mayfield. Roll out to either side. Try to get some things going downfield in the passing game. The other issues still persist. The offensive line is still a mess. The guys catching passes are still dropping balls and being inconsistent. I don't know that those things can get fixed in the season. And it might still mean that the offense isn't very good overall, or is just still flat out bad, which I don't know if that bodes well for Dillon Gabriel as a whole, but I think you got to take a shot here and give it a chance and see if you can breathe some life into this offense, and that's what Kevin Stefanski's doing here. So certainly a lot more to react to, including why I think starting Dillon Gabriel could end up being a bigger indictment on Kevin Stefanski in terms of him developing quarterbacks in his future if he does not play well. We'll talk about all those things coming up on multiple episodes here this week of the Locked On Browns podcast.
Now, I again don't think this is going to change much for the Browns. Like Spencer was just saying, they have to play a game, an international game, against the Minnesota Vikings defense, which the Steelers looked good against the Vikings defense last week, but the Browns are in a totally different position with a rookie quarterback making their first start than Aaron Rodgers being able to get the ball out of his hands fast as, the most experienced quarterback in the NFL. This Vikings defense is going to eat Dillon Gabriel alive, and like you said, you just get Cam Robinson in, he is absolutely set up to fail here.
He's set up to fail 100% because Brian Flores is going to mess with Dillon Gabriel so much. And like you said, Aaron Rodgers is the most experienced quarterback in the league right now versus the least experienced quarterback in the league. He's going to get blitzed like crazy. Their offensive line is already struggling. It's going to, we know Flores is going to have all of these things up his sleeve. He's not even going to need too many things up his sleeve, right? He doesn't have to show too much, but it's going to be confusing for Gabriel. His first game, like you said, international. The Browns are only averaging 14 points per game on the season. And yeah, Flacco stinks. Don't get me wrong. 2 touchdowns to 6 interceptions on the year. Worst passer rating among all qualified quarterbacks this season. So they had to move on. I'm fine with them doing it, but I don't expect, them to be good this week.
Yeah, I don't expect much either. And then after a game against the Minnesota Vikings, they have to then go into Pittsburgh, one of the toughest places to play in NFL history, and take on a Steelers team that, it hasn't been all great, but they found a way to win. And I'm looking at that division right now, and it's something that I kind of hinted at on yesterday's show. With Lamar Jackson we have Cooper Rush, Dillon Gabriel, Jake Browning. I mean, the Steelers are going to win this thing by default at this point.
Hey, now they're 3-1. They're doing well on their own. But yeah, I mean, this division was supposed to be so exciting this year, right? With Lamar and Joe Burrow's teams at the top. And we already lost Burrow for almost the whole year. I think Lamar, they'll be, hopefully they can last without him for a couple weeks and he'll be back and they'll be okay. But this division is ugly. I mean, really, the conference overall in the AFC is not living up to the hype. But I don't know when the Browns win a game and if they do this year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. They have a game against the Dolphins after the Steelers where they're back at home. That's probably a good option. A game against the Jets 2 weeks after that, maybe that, or 3 weeks after that. Maybe that's an option for them.
Now, they do get your Titans. Who would you pick in that game?
I would take the Browns. The Titans are we know that Kevin Stefanski is a good coach. Their talent is terrible. Their roster is terrible right now, but the Titans have a terrible roster and a terrible coach. So I would go with the Browns. I think the Titans are clearly the worst team in the NFL right now, but it's them or this current version of the Bengals. You know what I mean? That, to me, that's what the battle is. But we want to talk about good teams. There's a great football game on tonight. We got the 3-1 Los Angeles Rams, the 3-1 San Francisco 49ers, but I do fear that these teams are going in opposite directions. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is officially here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I absolutely love using FanDuel, whether it's spreads, money lines, over-unders, player props, putting all those together for a same-game parlay. It's the best way to make watching football even more exciting. And with the way that my team's playing this year, I need a little more excitement on my Sundays. But you guys know that we do FanDuel Friday around here, the Madman's Moneymaker. We've gone 3-2 in back-to-back weeks. So if you haven't done it already, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com, download the FanDuel app today and get started. Once again, that's FanDuel.com to get started. Also want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, we know that our favorite athletes sweat all the details, and Mazda brings the same attention to how they craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From the smooth handling to the intuitive controls, with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost every season. I have a Mazda CX-5 at home. Absolutely love my Mazda, and I know that you will too. Like our favorite players, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. It's Mazda. Move and be moved. All right, Michelle, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. Again, reacting to the big news in the NFL with Dillon Gabriel getting the start for the Cleveland Browns over Joe Flacco, and Shedeur Sanders still not getting a fair opportunity, in my opinion. But we move to two teams that are a lot better than the Cleveland Browns. Again, Thursday Night Football, we have the Los Angeles Rams against the San Francisco 49ers, and we talked about an old quarterback there with Aaron Rodgers, but another old quarterback in Matthew Stafford. Looks like he still got it. And our guys over at Locked On Rams talked about Stafford's performance in this week's game.
Talks to Matthew Stafford because we know how good he is. There's no doubt about that. We know that his arm takes a backseat to no football team. All right, Travis, here in our second segment, talks to Matthew Stafford because we know how good he is. There's no doubt about that. We know that his arm takes a backseat to no one's when he's right. But he has had some ups, has had some downs. In the Eagles game, if we got just probably the B plus version of Matthew Stafford, they probably end up winning that game. Yeah. And one of my predictions heading into this one was that he would throw for 350 yards. He would throw for 375 yards and no interceptions. And one of the big reasons why I thought he was going to have a big day is the lack of pressure that this Colts team has brought throughout the year with their front four. It was the second longest time he had to throw this season. He had 2.61 seconds to throw. He had a really good game. I mean, 375 yards, 29 of 41. Wasn't the perfect Matthew Stafford game. And I think it is classic Stafford where, hey, if he just went out there and treated every drive like it was a game-winning drive, I think he'd probably be the best quarterback in the history of the world. But it was a positive. I mean, you just saw him the Tutu Atwell throw. It's pretty, it's accurate, it's on the money. And we still know that Matthew Stafford can do Matthew Stafford things. There's no on the I look at the washed meter, right? Yeah. And there's nothing on the washed meter yet, right? He still has it.
You look at the weapons that they have on offense. You look at their defensive line. Sean McVay, we know, one of the best coaches in the NFL. I know that the 49ers are 3-1. I know that the Seahawks are 3-1, and we'll talk about them in just a second. But I have a hard time not believing that the Rams don't run away with this division, especially you look at they're going to play the 49ers, who are super banged up. Then they get the Ravens, probably without Lamar Jackson. Then they get the Jags, but then they get the Saints at home. I just think the Rams are, even though the records are tied, I think the Rams are going to kind of run away with this thing.
Yeah, I think they're getting real lucky here with these next two games with all the injuries to both of these teams. And they've gotten lucky this season, right? As they're 3-1 right now, they could just as easily be 1-3. That Texans game, they won 14-9, and the Texans were driving at the end of that game. Dari Ungabale, who should have never be touching the ball, right? Especially in that situation, he fumbles the ball at the LA 25. Like, they were going down. They were looking like they actually got something together on offense, and they could have scored and won. Yeah, they would have won against the Titans. That would have been their one win in the season. They lose against the Eagles. Last week, they win by 7, but the Colts had 2 touchdowns taken away, right? By A.D. Mitchell's stupid mistakes, where A.D. Mitchell just drops the ball before the goal line for no reason whatsoever, because he wasn't focusing or just was too excited. I don't know. So that took away a touchdown, gave the Rams the ball back. And then late in the game, when the game was tied 20-20, Jonathan Taylor takes it to the house for a 53-yard rushing touchdown, gets called back because of A.D. Mitchell holding call. They have to punt the ball, and then Matthew Stafford throws an 88-yard touchdown to Tutu Atwell immediately on the first play.
With 10 guys on the field.
Yeah,
They had 10 guys on the field.
That's a 14-point swing there. So they've gotten really lucky this year. And I expect them to beat the 49ers because, again, Brock Purdy re-injured his toe. We don't even know if he's going to play. Even if Mac Jones plays, he's dealing with a knee injury. Ricky Pearsall, their only healthy wide receiver left, might have a minor PCL sprain. So even if he plays, like, you're playing with someone that's injured. George Kittle's still on IR. This team is so banged up. They don't have Nick Bosa. So, yeah, they should win at home. But I do think the Rams haven't shown me what I thought they would this year. They're not looking as good as I thought they would.
And I think that's fair, but I think there's something to be said for football is a game where you can't beat yourself. And often the team that doesn't make the stupid mistake is the team that ends up winning. And I just trust the Rams to not be the team that makes the stupid mistake. And so far throughout the season, that's kind of been the case. I mean, the Eagles came back on them. They made some errors there, certainly. And like the guy said, if Stafford had a better game there, he probably would have been in good shape to win that game, and they'd be 4-0 as well. It's funny how we could go through all these different little plays where a team, the Ravens could be 3-1, and that's football right there. So the team that doesn't make the big mistake is often the team that wins. But you're right about the 49ers. They are just so banged up. It's not like they're incapable. It's not like they don't have the talent. They are just so injured, and you wonder how long they're going to be able to continue getting wins. I mean, they almost came back against the Jags too, but losing like that at against the Jags at home, that doesn't give you a lot of confidence. And you mentioned Nick Bosa. I think that might be actually the biggest injury of them all because the 49ers pass rush really struggled. And I played this clip yesterday, but I got to play it again for folks who may have missed it because our guys over at Locked On 49ers talked about how the pass rush is just in a bad spot.
They got zero pressure in this game. And I don't know if it's just because Nick Bosa wasn't out there. We saw them able to get some pressure in the last game without Nick Bosa on the field after he left the game. But you put all these things together, and that's why I start talking about it. I was like, man, okay, you got zero pressure with your pass rush. You couldn't run the football. You weren't good stopping the run. You turned the ball over 4 times. How was this game even 26-21?
I would say good coaching. You know, that's what I would say. That's all I got there. You know what I mean? Because it's hard to see how the 49ers had been able to get to a 3-1 record with all the turmoil and injury that they're dealing with.
And I don't know if you're able to watch this game like closely. Every ball bounced
Went
the Jaguars' way. Every single one. I mean, Fred Warner could have 3 interceptions in that game, but just somehow the ball kept bouncing. The fact that the center, I mean, I get like Brock Purdy holding on the ball. You can't be fumbling. Center's just standing there. The ball's at his feet. What do you think people are yelling about? Like, what do you think is happening right now? He's just standing there like this. I hate Jake Brendel with the strongest passion of everything in me. I'm a 49ers fan, so this very much upsets me. Brock Purdy has to take care of the ball. I also do think there are few quarterbacks in this league that get hated on. Like, he has nobody to throw to. If any other quarterback in this league had lost all their weapons, no one would be going in on them like this. Like, he didn't even have Pearsall until Pearsall limped back in that game in the late 4th quarter to try to help out the team. Juwan Jennings, of course, rib injury because of dirtiest hit by the Jaguars defense. But there's nobody available right now to pass to besides Christian McCaffrey, and he's great, but passing to a running back that often is not efficient. Like, that's not a way to win.
How long will he last too?
Yeah.
Like, he's going to break down eventually getting all of these touches. It's just not sustainable for him at his age too.
Oh, I could talk about the 49ers and my annoyance. I was supposed to be going to this game for my birthday. I think my dog tore her ACL just to keep me, sanity away from going, because I would have been so annoyed if I was going and it's going to be Mac Jones and none of my favorite players out in the field. So, I just think they're too banged up to pull out this win. But I do think they'll keep it closer than they should because that's what they do.
Well, hopefully a quick recovery to your dog, who seems like a true 49ers fan as well, really dedicated to the team this year with the injury. That's never what you want to hear, but best recovery to the pup, that's for sure. But you look at the 49ers schedule going forward. They play the Rams tonight. I think the Rams are going to win that game. Then they got to play the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are super banged up, but I have more faith that the Buccaneers are going to be able to pull that out. But Baker Mayfield's playing in that game. It's in Tampa Bay. Then they play the Falcons in primetime. That could be close, but the Falcons, I think, are one of those teams who are kind of Jekyll and Hyde. They could play really good or they could play really bad. And that could be tough. Then they have to go to Houston and play the Texans, who had their get-right game against the Tennessee Titans and could be kind of putting things together, and it's at least a very good defense in Houston. I guess this goes to my point where I think the Rams kind of run away with this one, because I feel like the 49ers are going to have a tough time matching their winning pace right now over the next month.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that you just sit your guys. I mean, I know this is a massive game, but you get 10-day break afterwards, and you sit Purdy, let him heal up. You sit Pearsall. You get Kittle hopefully back next week, and then you go from there, right, with a little bit of health, and you try to get through that rougher patch of games, and then after that, it gets much easier, and you beat the Rams next time, right? Like go all in next time.
Yeah, after that month of games, they go Giants. Then they get to host the Rams at home. Cardinals, Panthers, Browns, Titans. That is a chance where you could, if you go into that stretch right there and you're 4-3 or you're 3-4, you could come out of that next 6-week stretch and be looking like roses and ready to go for a playoff run healthy. So that has to be the optimistic view for the 49ers. But the team that they got to contend with in the NFC West is not only the Rams, it's the Seattle Seahawks, who also sit at 3-1, and they will play Baker Mayfield in the Bucs this week. And I got to tell you, I think Seattle is going to win that game. If you guys want to go see that game for yourself, make sure that you head over to Game Time. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast. It's easy. It's backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. So the price that you see is the price that you pay. I pulled up Game Time recently, and in a couple of taps, I saw some amazing deals. And I'm talking about your favorite NFL games for as low as $100. It's the reason why I use Game Time for all of my tickets. I bought NFL, NBA, WNBA, MLB, comedy and concert tickets, all on Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, Michelle, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the Browns quarterback decision. We talked about the Thursday night football matchup tonight. But now I want to get into what might be the best game of the weekend, certainly one of the best games of the weekend. We have the 3-1 Seattle Seahawks and the 3-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, I think that the Seahawks are going to win this game. Tampa Bay is dealing with so many injuries. Now Bucky Irving is banged up, and my guy James Yarko from Locked On Bucks talked about how things are just piling up on him.
During the loss to the Eagles, the Bucks lost a lot of players to injury once again. Jamel Dean is dealing with a hip injury. Benjamin Morrison tweaked his hamstring, though early reports are that it isn't going to be a long-term issue. Greg Gaines injured his pec, which is an absolute disaster. Hassan Reddick is dealing with something. I've seen concussion. I've seen stinger. And then you have Bucky Irving leaving after the game in a walking boot, probably from when his ankle got bent up underneath the defender on that tackle when he fumbled, even though he didn't really fumble because he was down.
Very upset about that call, understandably so. But Bucky Irving's still in a walking boot. We heard from Todd Bowles that he needs to be out of that walking boot by Friday to be able to play. I just have a hard time believing that even if he's out of a walking boot by Friday, he's going to be healthy enough to play in this game. And Seattle's defense is really rolling right now. I know that Sam Darnold has been up and down, but I think Seattle is in a great spot to win this game.
Yeah, with all the injuries, possibly. I do trust Baker a little bit more than Sam Darnold. We'll get into their journey here in a second. It's just so interesting how close of a career journey these two have had. But with the Seahawks side, I'm worried. The Buccaneers' run defense is so incredibly good, and I do think if their run game gets shut down, Sam Darnold can be forced into mistakes, and he really only has JSN to throw to, right? Like Cooper Kupp can come around sometimes. No, not really. Torrey Horton is fine, but as a rookie, but it's really JSN there, and that's about it. So if they could shut down the run game, and if Bucky Irving has to miss, they still have Rashad Bright and Sean Tucker. Those are good enough running backs to handle a game or two. So I think the Buccaneers can still pull it out. Yeah,
it should be a close game no matter what, but certainly one of the best. But like you mentioned, it's funny to see these two quarterbacks leading 3-1 teams. When Baker Mayfield was a cast-off, Sam Darnold was a cast-off, given up on. And actually, our guys over at Locked On Seahawks kind of gave Baker Mayfield his flowers in that regard.
The Seahawks at 3-1, trying to stay atop the NFC West, and they've got a talented challenger coming to Lumen Field on Sunday. The Tampa Bay Bucks coming off their first defeat of the season, but it was kind of one of those misleading games because Tampa Bay ended up coming back and only losing to Philadelphia by 8, but it was a game that had gotten out of hand early. Philadelphia built a big lead, and kudos to Tampa Bay for fighting back. The Bucks have certainly got some injuries, but this was a team going into the year. I remember when we were talking about Seattle's schedule, I said, this is a game that stands out as one of the tougher ones to me, even at home, because I just look at what Baker Mayfield's doing. You want to talk about a quarterback who got kicked around way more than he deserved. He has turned into a true top 10 quarterback. He has thrived in Tampa Bay. And even without Liam Cohen, who's now is the head coach for Jacksonville, we'll talk more about him a week from now. But Cohen leaving, it hasn't mattered. Baker Mayfield, Tampa Bay's offense has not been as potent this year. I think a lot of that's been injuries, though, more so than the change in play callers.
But looking at the journey, like you said, of both these guys, you got to give them credit for being where they're at with these teams right now.
Let me go through their journey real quick. I'll try to make this quick, but it just makes me so excited. So they're both drafted top 3 overall in the 2018 draft, with Baker
draft.
going 1, Darnold going 3. They're both traded by the team that drafted them very quickly, both to the Panthers, widely enough, right? They fight for that starting job in the 2022 season. Baker wins it, but Baker struggles, and the Panthers are like, peace out. They trade him to the Rams. The Cardinals or the Panthers give up on Sam Darnold too and don't re-sign him in free agency, right? So Sam Darnold goes and signs this tiny little contract to be the 49ers backup in 2023. Baker goes and signs this tiny contract to be the quarterback for the Buccaneers in the 2023 free agency. And with Baker, he had no competition, so he gets the starting job and he balls out, earns takes the team to the playoffs, earns a $100 million contract after that. Sam Darnold's a backup in 2023, signs a small contract with the Vikings, and he's not supposed to start. No one believes in him. He balls out, wins 14 games, goes to the playoffs, earns himself a $100 million contract in free agency with a different team, but with the Seahawks. And now, I mean, it's so funny to see what the Jets and the Panthers and the Browns have done since not having these quarterbacks, right? They've just been all disasters. So these two, same journey, and they're both killing it. It's just going to be a fun game to watch.
Honestly, it just points to how important coaching is in the NFL. I know a lot of people say, it's the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X's and the O's. I think in the NFL, talent is pretty similar. It's hard to get a supremely more talented roster because of salary cap and the draft and the way that it works. Like most teams, 22 out of 32 teams in the NFL probably have similar talent. Their coaches are the difference in whether the quarterbacks perform, whether the team performs, all of that. So I think that lends to coaching a little bit, and that these guys have more talent than maybe is obvious to the naked eye when you're just watching once a week on Sundays and stuff like that. But that does beg the question. Who is the next Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold? Who would you pick out of all the kind of cast-off quarterbacks who you think might be that guy?
I'm still not willing to give up on Justin Fields. And I get it. He's had chances with multiple teams now, but I mean, both Baker and Darnold have played on 4 teams now, right? So Justin Fields, and he chose the Jets this year. And I think that was maybe his only option, but the Jets have never had a good quarterback, right? Like it's just not going to work out for them. So I still think if he could just find the right play caller, just find the right team that's loaded, I do think Justin Fields could be such a good quarterback. I'm not ready to give up on him yet.
And this could be his Carolina Panthers moment, you know what I mean, where a bad organization makes him look bad and it forces him to go be a backup next year, and maybe he picks the right team to be a backup for and then get supported. I think that Justin Fields would be playing better for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now than he would the New York Jets, so you could make that argument. But the guy that I'm going to go with, and I admit it's a little bit of home cooking, but here's the thing, I don't think that it's going to be with the Titans. I think it's Will Levis. I think that Will Levis has enough talent that if you put him in a proper situation, if you put Will Levis with the 49ers, you put him with the Vikings, you put him with a team like that, I don't think that he's ever going to be an elite quarterback, but Will Levis has some Baker Mayfield to him where he's got the fire and the passion to do it. I think he's a smart enough guy. He has one of the strongest arms in the entire NFL. That cannot be debated. Quick release. It's just mentally, he's not seeing things very well when he was playing last year. He panicked. He had a bad offensive line. He had no weapons, tried to do things on his own, be Superman, and it obviously went terribly, terribly wrong. Now, Levis is out for the entire season with a shoulder injury, but I believe that Will Levis could end up, I think Will Levis has better physical talent than Bryce Young. I think that Will Levis is a better quarterback than Anthony Richardson, who I think is another guy who could be in this discussion. But for Richardson's sake, Shane Steichen is the type of guy to get the best out of a quarterback. Like, look at what they're doing with Daniel Jones right now. So if Anthony Richardson didn't work there, I have a hard time believing that he could go somewhere else and magically be revived. I think out of all the players that are kind of in the recent drafts, Levis had the worst situation. He's had the worst coaching. And I think that he has some of the best physical talent of any quarterback that's been drafted in the early rounds recently. So I don't really like any of the options, if I'm honest with you. But I'll actually give Will Levis an opportunity because it's clear that the Titans organization is where quarterbacks go to die. So Levis is very likely that he could be better with a better situation than what he was with when he was in Tennessee.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see if this path will go for CJ Stroud, right? Because it's been so bad for him the last couple of years that maybe he just, fails miserably and Houston continues to fail, and then he has to, sit maybe as a backup for a bit and then comes back with a new team. That could happen. I know people are probably like, what about Zach Wilson? I get it. He was stuck on the Jets, but you just never even saw flashes from the dude, right? There's never even moments where oh, look, that was really good. I'm not going Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I'm not buying that one either.
No.
But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. I am your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, the Data Queen, Michelle Majuk. As we tell you every episode, thanks for tuning in. Stay safe out there.
Bye, y'all.